Hey, what's up everyone? As you can tell, I'm not in my studio. I'm out in Maui, and today's actually our last day out here in Maui. But it's super stormy, windy. I have my little dead cat here, so hopefully the audio is not too bad. But as you can tell by today's video, I want to talk about the Sony FX3. And a lot of you have probably been interested in this camera, and I feel like Sony has hit a really cool corner of the market with this certain camera, with their whole lineup from the FX9 to the FX6, A7S III. And this is a camera that I'm really considering, and I feel like people who are a lot like me can really benefit from this video. First off, I want to talk about why I rented this camera. So with Sony releasing this FX3, it's basically the A7S III in a cinema body. And for someone like me who wants a cinema camera for all my client work, it was between the FX6 and the C70. Essentially the two main cameras on the market, but with Sony releasing the FX3, which is more of a travel-centered camera, it kind of takes a stab at the R5 from Canon, which the R5 is more of a photo camera. So with that alone, I'm like, okay, I'm going to Montana soon. Let's rent this camera out. Let's try it out. And alongside that, I've been asked a bunch to make some Sony LUTs. You can find those down in the description below. I'll also be selling those on Moment's website. For me, I really want two cameras. I want a cinema camera for all my client work, from weddings, brands, field trips, literally everything. And then I want a B camera. I want something that will go hand in hand with that camera and cut well together, but I also want something that's more for travel. Currently, I'm out in Maui. I brought my Blackmagic because I'm shooting some stuff, but it's a pain in the ass to carry around. It's freaking heavy. It's just not the best travel setup. So knowing that, it's like, okay, I want something that won't take me away from what I'm experiencing, but I want something that will give me some great footage and also cut well together on a professional standpoint. So yeah, like I said, I want a great A and B camera setup. So I thought, okay, let's rent this camera, let's try it out, let's see how it actually works out in the field. I've shot on the C70, I've shot on the R5. I kind of know how those two work well together, and it makes me want more. And after seeing the offerings that Sony has with the FX3 and the FX6, it's really enticing to switch over because they just give you so much for your money. And I feel like if Sony didn't release that FX3, I wouldn't really have considered it. But seeing that they made a video-focused travel camera that's basically the size of an A6500, it's really enticing. So that's why I rented it, and I had a week to work with it, and I have a lot of thoughts on it. So for ergonomics, but the ergonomics of this camera are great. It reminds me of the A6500 with how tiny it is. I really don't like the Sony Alpha bodies, like the A7 series, like that whole series of cameras. I don't really like the ergonomics and how they feel while you're shooting. And I feel like the FX3 felt great without having a cage or a hand strap or anything. The grip was great to use. It was tiny. The flip out screen was great. I love that it has a top handle with the XLR inputs. And I know a lot of people don't like those, but being able to have 3 inputs of audio right away in a travel setup like that without having to buy a preamp or anything, it's a pretty great deal. I think with that alone, it allows people to rely on the FX3 as their A camera for client work. People like Danny Gavertz, Niles Duran, Mike Dewey, a lot of people are switching over to this camera for their A camera for all of their work. And I think that it works out pretty well because you have these professional audio inputs. Check my notes here. I don't know if you can see the rain. It's raining. It's like coming in, landing on the lens. Yeah, overall the camera felt super sturdy. It felt like it wasn't gonna break. It just felt professional. Being able to rely on a camera like that when I throw it in a tote bag, travel with it, when I'm bringing it into places like at the beach or there's sand everywhere, like having something that's sturdy that I know isn't gonna fail, it's just really nice to have. So for the accessories, I rented 2 Sony, was it the Tough Cards? I think they were both 128. I shot a lot. I didn't fill up any of them. I think I used like 50 gigs per day or something, which honestly isn't that bad. I thought I needed the CF cards, but you only need that if you're using like 4K 120 or 60 or whatever, like super high frame rates. I used my Peak Design strap and also this mic, and it worked out to be a pretty solid walk around combo, especially with the 24-70. I don't think I'd want a wide angle lens for this. I think a 24-70 from Sigma or the 28-70 Sigma, it'd be a great pairing for just a everyday walk around, even a professional camera. I think having a 24-70 is a solid range for a walk around camera. You could definitely throw on different glass depending on your shoot, but the 24-70 is a great range just to capture literally everything that you're seeing. Like I said, the ergonomics are great. I would have loved a wrist strap, kind of like the C70, just being able to like hold it and not really have to like worry about gripping it. I think Tilta makes a cage that has a built-in wrist strap, so it's $100, I think. I'd recommend going that route if you get an FX3. That's what I'm going to be doing eventually when I buy an FX3. I usually don't like kitting things out, but I think having a cage with a hand strap at the bare minimum would be pretty nice. And with that cage, I believe you could still use the top handle with the XLR inputs. And the last two things, I had 2 ND filters. I had a 2-5 and a 6-9 for Moment. It worked out pretty well. I think I needed to use the 6-9 more. The 2-5 lived on it the entire time, but I think I need to learn how to expose S-Log3. We're gonna get to that in a second. I think the 6-9 would have worked out a lot better because I need to overexpose a bit. Changing out ND filters isn't the end of the world, especially while I'm traveling. It really sucks when I'm on a professional shoot and I have to take that time and care to change out the filters. So that's where the FX6 is still a dream to have, but I'm sure that I'll be using the FX3 when I get one on the field trip shoots, and I'll have to be swapping out filters a lot. And then I use the Siri travel tripod, which I'm using right now. I love this thing. I bought it for Alaska. I've brought it on 3 trips so far: Alaska, Montana, Hawaii, and it's great. It fits the C70, fits my Blackmagic. It worked out perfectly for the FX3. So yeah, those are all the accessories I used. You really don't need that many accessories to run it. Oh, I also used, I had 3 batteries and I used 1 per day. The battery life was insane, and I shot the highest quality possible, which is like XAVSI or something, 4K 24. So having good battery life like that was pretty cool. So the ease of use. The Sony menu took a little bit to get used to. I just like fumbled around with it for like 30-40 minutes, just kind of getting familiar with it. The codecs were a little weird to figure out, but with a Google search I was able to kind of understand it. I don't really mind having menus like that. The C70's menus are kind of like that. Blackmagic just has super simple menus, which can kind of be to a fault. You don't really get that many features and customization out of it. Yeah, I think there's a setting in there to like lock your shutter speed and ISO. It's not really like shutter angle, which would have been sick because it's a cinema camera, but I think you can like press a button and it locks it. So if you like hit the dial, it won't move. I figured that out at the end of the trip. I don't really know how to get back to it. I'll have to figure that out again and probably make a video of how I set up my FX3 when I get one. And like I said, the audio was a little bit tricky to figure out. I think I should have just watched an in-depth video, but I was a little too hurried on it. A lot of my stuff just came out super hot, and I had it on auto. And I tried to have a safety track, and the safety track still came out pretty hot. I use auto on the C70 in track 1 and then manual in track 2, and kind of just adjust track 2 to where I think it needs to be. And I've never had any issues, especially with field trips, but I think if I could dial in the audio setup, I'll be pretty confident moving forward using that when I'm on field trips or YouTube videos or really anything. But yeah, user error, super tricky to figure out. I just need to spend more time with it. Now time for the image quality. Sony really stepped up their game on this. I left Sony years ago because their colors were trash. This was like the era of the A7S II, A6500, like the Canon EOS R, and I can confidently say that Sony and Canon are neck and neck. Now, there's definitely different nuances with the color science. There's really no bad camera now. I think with Sony having the full frame sensors and having great dynamic range and great colors now, they make it super enticing to switch over. And I love the colors of the C70. I find it a little too soft though, but when I exposed FX3 right, it looked insane. I was told to overexpose by 2 stops and then keep my ISO at 6400. And a lot of the shots that were overexposed by 1.7 to 2 stops were trashed. And then having the dual native ISO or the dual base ISO is really cool too. I think it's 640 and 12,800. It's like super clean at 12,800. It's insane. I have never really shot on a full frame sensor. I'm super used to Super 35 sensors and crop sensors alike. I could really see why people want full frame and large format. The depth you get out of it is just really unique. And I think being able to pair vintage lenses like the Leica R's or the Contax Zeiss's with a full frame sensor like that would be gorgeous. So seeing that they have the FX6 and the FX3 with both full frame sensors that match really well, it's a pretty good deal, I'd say. I shot all the different color profiles. I shot at Cinetone, which straight out of camera is insanely good. I shot S-Log2, S-Log3, HLG, just trying to get a bunch of footage for LUTs. But S-Log3, it's basically the same as C-Log2. It's the flattest curve that Sony provides. So I really enjoyed the new color science. Sony did a fantastic job. So for things that I really liked about this camera, I love the small footprint. I love the video focused layout, having the big recording button, having tally lights everywhere on the screen, on the front, on the back. I just really liked how it was video focused instead of having to customize each button for your video settings. I love having the top handle with the XLRs. I don't find it annoying. I don't think I'll ever rock it without the top handle. I don't use gimbals. I value having good audio, so it kind of makes sense to have that all the time. I really enjoyed having a really small camera to travel with, but unlike the Canon R5 or the R or really anything like that, this camera felt professional. I feel like I could use this on a shoot with Sam or really any client and feel confident that I can get the stuff that I need. As long as I learn how to expose S-Log3 and learn the audio settings, I'd be golden. And that just really comes with any camera. You just have to learn the camera in and out to be able to use it well. Forgot to mention the autofocus is insane on it. I use autofocus for like 90% of the video and I didn't have any issues with it. So the things I disliked, of course, no internal ND, can't really fault them for that. It's just the way it is. But really, other than that, I have no dislikes for it. I had a great time with this camera and I'm super eager to get one. So who's this camera for? Well, I think it's for a number of people. I think it's for someone who can use it as their A camera, or someone who wants to have it as a B or a C camera, someone who wants it as a travel setup like I do, someone who can use it as an A camera till they can afford an FX6. I think it's for a lot of people, which is really cool because Sony has given professionals a great travel small gimbal camera, but they've given prosumers a really solid travel camera or a YouTube camera as well. Having the professional audio inputs, small form factor that's built for video, I feel like it's a really great offering that Canon and a lot of other companies don't really have yet. I think if you're someone who has already invested in the Sony lineup, you can't go wrong with it. And you can adapt a lot of lenses to Sony E-mount. It's kind of a no-brainer if you're already in that system, or if you're kind of looking to jump into a system. And if you're really interested in the FX9 or the FX6 and you want a solid B or C camera or a travel camera to go with it, you kind of already know what decision you're gonna make. If you're someone that's just starting out into weddings or brands or really anything, this is a camera I'd recommend you starting out with. I usually would recommend the Canon EOS R or the A7S III or the X-T4, but I think this is such a great offering that like you have such a great camera to work with that really you can't really outgrow. I'm sure, yeah, I guess you can outgrow it and get an FX6 or a 9. So the biggest question, will I buy this one? Yes. I need to sell this camera first. I really want to get this camera. I think I'm ready to jump into the Sony system, and I think the first step is the FX3 and eventually the FX6. And I plan on only rocking Sigma lenses because they're cheaper and they're basically just as good. I think for a travel setup, it just makes the most sense. It's super small, lightweight, the image is insane, and I can use it on a lot of shoots before I can afford an FX6. I'm using the LPE6 batteries and I already had to change it out within 20 minutes of filming. Oh, the sun went away. I don't think I'll really miss Blackmagic RAW. RAW is really great to work with, but I think just the ergonomics of the Blackmagic camera is just really annoying to work with, especially since Sam sold the C70. We're kind of relying on the Blackmagic or the R5 to shoot all these videos, and we're gonna be picking up field trips really soon. And I don't really want to shoot on the Blackmagic. It's gonna be such a pain in the ass to run audio, time code, even just like carrying it around like out in the mountains is not gonna be fun. So I think the FX3 will be great in the meantime. Yeah, the battery life is insane. SD cards, the way to go. ND filters are kind of annoying, but just carry the little pouch around. Could also get a matte box for it. And then the 24-70 Sigma is just such a great lens. Yeah, and then being able to have 2 XLRs, then a 3.5. Like I either run 2 Sennheiser lavs into there or just get the tentacle syncs and then run time code into the camera and then just have the Sennheiser MKE600 on top for ambient sound. It'd be such a great setup. But yeah, I definitely want to get back into shooting just more personal work. Yeah, shooting little films for YouTube, going around to the beach and filming out here. I definitely would have filmed more if I had the FX3 with me. Like my wife said, like this camera feels like work and it's not fun to bring when you're out on vacation. So yeah, I'm really eager to switch over to the FX3. I'll be using it for everything. So hats off to you, Sony. You've turned a Canon boy into a potential Sony boy. I never considered Sony for the longest time. I thought it was Canon only, but they give you so much for your money. And I feel like they're always listening to their audience and they seem to support a lot of creators. So it's really exciting to see. I'd love to work with them on some projects at some point for sure. That's something that I think Canon is kind of missing out on. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, leave a comment if you're considering this camera or if you have any questions about it. I'd love to answer them. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See you guys when I'm back home in California. Peace.